Time sure does fly when things are going well. It's weird to think that up until the back end of last October, any information about the next Nintendo console was just rumours on top of leaks on top of what someone's uncle picked up from Nintendo HQ. Then in the space of one trailer we got an official name, brief shots of prospective titles, and some handy information about what's so interesting about the Nintendo Switch. You can only take so much from a trailer though, so I'm very grateful that Nintendo gave me the chance to get my hands on the console and a few games to get a better understanding of what the Switch is and where it fits in the market. I had 4 hours a few Fridays back to work out what the Nintendo Switch can offer and whether or not Nintendo are approaching it in the right way. I've delayed this video a bit since I want to let my thoughts fester and to not rush out a verdict of "Holy shit, it's the best thing ever!" or "Oh god, everyone's doomed, save the children!" You might have worked out by now, it's not that cut and dry. Following the failings of the Wii U, Nintendo have been facing an uphill struggle to convince the public that the latest console isn't along the same lines. Really, when you've got a controller configuration that looks a lot like the Wii U's gamepad, you can understand the skepticism. I never had too many glaring issues with the Wii U's hardware, but it's good to see that the Switch has really tried to keep things simple, but still with options for how to use it. I have to keep reminding myself how many different controllers there are, and I think maybe 5? All but the Pro controller you get as part of the console, so yeah, variety. That way the decision is up to you. If you find using a controller as large as the Wii U gamepad a pain, then use the Joy-Cons with the grip. If you liked the Wii Remote and Nunchuck setup from that bygone era, then you can hold a Joy-Con in each hand. Or you can just keep things simple and use the chunky Pro controller. A lot of these controllers are smaller than you might think, and certainly sitting down with both Joy-Cons with the grip for the first time I felt like a giant, but that's just down to my freakishly long fingers. They come in handy sometimes. There's been a lot of concern relating to how Switch games perform when in a handheld configuration, but honestly I didn't notice much of a difference. Obviously the resolution changes from 1080p to 720p since the screen is smaller, but I never noticed any differences in frame rate, which seems to be the big concern nowadays. I guess it depends on the game, but there was Mario Kart 8 and Breath of the Wild and they were smooth as silk. Also Sonic Mania, but it's a 16-bit game, there'd be big problems if it struggled with that. There's other points of interest like how quickly the battery life drains away out of the dock, which has been reported being anywhere from 2 to 6 hours depending on the graphical strain of the game. I can see why this bothers some people, but I'm not too sure what scenario I'll be in where I can play 2 hours of Zelda on the go without interruptions, so maybe a problem worth dealing with when it happens. The Switch performs well as a handheld, but battery life could be an issue that some people see as a stumbling block. Maybe Nintendo could work on some portable batteries, that'd be sweet. Also, this HD Rumble thing is insane. I'm not exactly sure how games are going to use it in the future, but all I know is that the truly mind-blowing moments at the Switch premiere came from playing some of the 1-2 Switch minigames. Like, there's one where you're trying to work out how many little balls there are in the controller, and you tilt it around and shake it, and you can feel the balls move across your palm and hit the side of the controller. It's crazy shit. Might have been me getting caught up in the excitement of the moment and agreeing with what the staff was saying, or if there's some kind of illusion at work, but I swear the controller felt heavier with more balls. Also, there's a minigame where you milk a cow and you can feel the milk come through the controller, and I've changed my mind, I don't want one anymore. Thankfully, the Switch isn't shackled down by this gimmick. You can enjoy games that barely use this feature and get by without even knowing it's there. Wasn't that long ago when you couldn't escape the Wii's pointer and motion controls. Points for Nintendo. What you should care about with the release of a new console isn't necessarily the specs or the price or the color, but whether or not I can play some sweet ass games on it. This was part of the problem with the Wii U. Lack of momentum from the start with few exciting titles at launch, and it struggled to grab much attention after that. A lot of people see this problem repeating itself with the Switch, and while again I can understand that, it's releasing with a new Zelda game, so that's me set. It really comes down to how much you're willing to bend. Of course, if you're one of these weird people who'll buy a console just because, then you'll be fine. But if, say, you like Mario but can't stand Zelda, do you grin and bear it through the launch period and make do with Bomberman and just dance until the holidays when Mario Odyssey comes out? Hey, there's also Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is pretty nifty since it comes with all the DLC included and Splatoon characters, but again, that doesn't come out until the end of April. The launch lineup isn't quite as good as people would have liked, and if you can't find value in Zelda, then I would recommend waiting until something you are interested in comes out. I still think it'll have a better launch than the Wii U, but few exciting titles to play straight out the gate, and a price that doesn't stand well against the competition may cause problems. Guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. But the shining light amongst all this uncertainty is, of course, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and as much as I don't want to staple my colours to the mast, I am really fucking excited for this game. Before I went into London to play it, the anticipation was based on trailers and the 5 million hours Nintendo spent playing it at E3, but actually sitting down with it for the 20-minute demo has convinced me that this might actually be a good game after all. Including myself, I saw 4 people playing the demo and each time was different. Really, 20 minutes isn't enough to get much of a taste for the game, but it showed just how much is open to you at the start. I know some people won't be convinced, but if you're skeptical about buying a Switch and no games leap out at you, give this one a go because this is where Nintendo have put all their money, at least at launch. The pricing might not be that bad, especially when you see that chart which ended up on Reddit that shows the inflation-adjusted price of consoles at launch, with the Switch sitting as the 4th cheapest of all time, but you can't ignore that its main competitors have been around for a few years now and have naturally dropped down in price. Nowadays, you can get a PS4 Slim with Uncharted 4 for cheaper than the Switch without any bundled games. Ditto with the Xbox One. Obviously, over time, the Switch will go through a similar price drop, but since the launches are staggered like this, the price given to the Switch is undercut by 2 existing consoles with libraries full of games. Nintendo are putting a lot of reliance on the Switch's technology and their exclusive IPs like Zelda and Splatoon. But if you are objectively looking for a better deal at this very moment, you'd have to go with the PS4 or Xbox One. The better news is that the nature of the Switch's portability means that Nintendo aren't competing with Sony and Microsoft in a dick measuring contest. The Switch is powerful enough, but even though Nintendo are marketing it as a console you plug into a TV, it gets more value as a handheld. The idea of taking games like this on the go is frankly incredible, but it's hard to say whether this will convince others as much. What can I say? I'm an optimistic pessimist. For me, the Switch will do fine, if not straight out of the gate. Releasing with a hotly anticipated Zelda game that looks like it'll actually deliver on many years worth of promise and delays will be enough to convince many people that the Switch is worth buying at launch. And with games like Mario Odyssey and Splatoon 2 coming later, still don't like that title, Nintendo are tapping into franchises that should bring them some success. My concern is that gaining momentum with the Switch could prove tricky. The new technology is interesting, but applying it in a game like 1-2 Switch, which is a collection of mini-games that ship for full price, is maybe not the best way to go. If Nintendo made 1-2 Switch part of the Switch's release like Wii Sports was with the Wii, then I could see it being an added incentive to buy it and test it out. Honestly, I'm not too worried about how the Switch performs at launch since other consoles have gotten away with worse, but I'm just hoping that Nintendo gives it the support the Wii U lacked throughout most of its life. You gotta support your children, Nintendo. You can't expect them to fend for themselves if you don't give them the tools to do so. Be a good parent for a change.